Welcome to Book Huddle. I'm your host, Karen Reader with Readgab. Today, our guest is Grace Lin. She is the author of Where the Mountain Meets the Moon and her new book that I am beyond excited about, The Gate, the Girl, and the Dragon. It is gorgeous. I listened to it, and I also listened to Where the Mountain Meets the Moon years ago, and I discovered afterwards that you're an illustrator. And so I was like, oh my gosh, all this that I'm missing by listening. And the audio is wonderful and gorgeous, but get these, illustrated versions as well. I'm so excited to have you today. Grace, can you take a second and introduce yourself? Tell us about you separate from being an author.
Hi, I'm Grace Lin. I live in Western Massachusetts, right near Smith College. I have a daughter who is 13. She used to love us so much, but now we're getting a lot of this. Well, for those who can't see me, it's the 13-year-old eye roll.
Right, right.
And
Parents are so annoying sometimes. I'm always telling my kids' teachers, I'm like, could you say this? Because it's smart if you say it to them.
And I guess the last thing is we usually have chickens, but we had unfortunately a bobcat massacre about a little bit over a month ago. But tomorrow our new flock of chickens is arriving. So that's the third really
Yay!
interesting thing happening for us.
That's exciting. Do you do the rooster too, or just the chickens?
No, just the chickens. Our area does not allow for roosters.
Okay.
And
Right.
we actually order pullets because if we get chicks or we're not sure if we'll have a rooster and
Right.
we're too soft-hearted to let the rooster chick go free
Yes.
and find freedom in the wild. We just get pullets so we know that they're female and we can keep them forever.
Okay.
Or
Okay. Nice. So yeah, my brother's neighbor did that when they had to get rid of their rooster. When they found out, they just kind of tossed it over their fence, and for a while, you just hear the rooster roaming while it was like, "Well, I'm here, guys, in a rooster."
Well, we took a chicken class before we got chickens, and
Uh-huh.
our teacher was like, "Yeah," we're like, "But we're not allowed to have roosters." I'm like, "Well, if you get one, you go to a woods and you let them free." And you're like, "Oh, okay."
At the end of the day, they're animals, and off they go into the wild.
Exactly. You're like, "Okay, be free."
Happiness to the rooster, hopefully, and not getting eaten.
I know.
Circle of life.
Yes.
All right. So we're gonna do an icebreaker. I love it. That transitions well into our icebreaker with Charlotte's Web. So it's so well known. So we're not even gonna talk about what Charlotte's Web is about. I just would love to know, Grace, what would your barnyard friend be if you
Yeah.
got to befriend one of these animals?
I know, I was thinking about that because, of course, the obvious answer is Charlotte because she's
Yes.
so wise and she's so kind and she's so lovely. Of course, there's Charlotte. But then I was starting thinking, the thing is that Wilbur has such a beautiful disposition. He's such a, for lack of better words, he's such an innocent, right? And I feel like being friends with somebody who has such like, that joy of life and that like kind of like looking at everything with fresh eyes feeling would be a really good friend to have. So I'm thinking I would lean it'd be a hard choice between Charlotte or Wilbur, but I think I'll choose Wilbur just because I think everybody else will choose Charlotte.
Right? Well,
And
and
Wilbur needs some friends, someone to
seems
choose
like you
from.
would get Charlotte with Wilbur, right?
Yes,
You get them both.
that's
I
true.
I love that perspective though, the freshness, that innocence of life that and
Mhm.
somebody who really needs a friend.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's so much stuff going on in this world right now that like it's really easy to get very, very jaded. And I think to have a friend that has like that just sees joy in life, I think that's a really important friend to have right now.
About the most simple things. I can
Mhm.
like these like simple
Yeah.
joys in life.
Mhm.
Yes. Oh, I love that. That makes me happy. A good way to start my morning. All right, Grace, tell us about your newest book. It was 9 years. You've been doing picture books in between though, yes?
Yes, I've been doing a lot of books in between, picture books, early readers, even a nonfiction book, so lots. So I haven't done an original novel in over 9 years though. It's been a while.
Here it is. All right. Well, yes, when I saw it, I knew because of Where the Mountain Meets the Moon that I wanted to get my
Oh,
hands on it. And so I jumped when I saw the audio on NetGalley and I was like, yes. And it was beautiful and wonderful. So tell those who haven't heard about The Girl, the Gate, and the Dragon, what is it about?
Sure. So this book, I've been telling people it's kind of like Asian American Narnia. So, in Narnia, there's the wardrobe that the kids go through to go into another world. But in my book, instead of it's the wardrobe, it's actually a Chinatown gate that is a portal into another world. But in the Narnia books, the kids, like I said, go to another world. But in my book, it's not kids going into another world. It's like one of the animals from Narnia coming into our world. So it's like if Mr. Tummus came into our world. And in my book, what comes through the Chinatown gate is a stone spirit of a lion cub.
Yes.
So he's a special. In front of the Chinatown gate, there are two statues of lions, and one lion is holding a lion cub, and the spirit of that lion cub is the animal that comes through the gate, and then gets stuck here in our world and has to figure out how to get back home. And so that is the gate, the girl, and the dragon. Oh, and sorry. And to get back home, he needs the help of the girl and a
Yes.
dragon who kind of looks like a worm.
I love the simplicity of that. I'm reading Whisper It Wicks right now, the second book, and it's they have to start with a worm and the magic. And I love that basic that the an all-powerful dragon in the form of a worm, and the most basic of things and transition to power and our viewpoint of that. I thought that was neat that we get the representation of this worm. Oh, there's so much I'm excited to talk about. Let's just talk about where did this come from first? Because you do a beautiful job of taking, folklore and then mixing it with the modern. So what got you inspired to finally give us
Oh,
another novel?
Oh, well, I'm so glad that you like like that was a really big thing for me to mix the modern myths with
Yes.
the old myths. So those who have read Where the Mountain Meets the Moon and Star of the Sky, When the Sea Turned to Silver, those are very much set in kind of like fairy tale ancient times, and I use all old myths and legends in that. And in this book, I use old myths and legend too, but I also use contemporary urban legends as well, real contemporary urban legends, and I mix them together. And so this book is kind of placed in a modern day, and so it's a little bit different than some of my other books. And I think some readers are like, "Oh, that's a little bit," gave him a little surprise, but I hopefully a good surprise.
Yes, yes, I loved it. I loved it.
But this book has so many little seeds that kind of grew into this book. At the end of the book, I talk about how I write, and how I write is like I don't really get one idea. I just kind of get a little idea here and a little idea here, a little idea here, and a little idea here, and I kind of hope that they grow into something. And for this book, they all kind of grew together to make this book.
Yes.
But probably the first little idea I got was I mentioned the Chinatown gate,
Yes.
and I said that in front of the gate there are two, usually in front of most Chinatown gates have two stone lions in front of them. And so I was at the Boston Chinatown gate with my daughter, who was at the time, so you can see it's a long time ago, she was around 4 years old, 3 years
Wow.
old. I was showing her the lions, and I said, "Oh, do you see how that lion is holding a ball, and that lion is holding a cub?" And she went over to the cub, and she like patted it and said, "Oh, nice doggy," even though she should have said kitty. But she said, "Nice doggy." And when she was patting the little cub, I was like, "Oh, that cub should really have an adventure of his own." And
Yes.
so that's maybe the first little spark, and then lots of other little seeds got planted all around that.
Wow. So this has just been in the works and growing for years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I write, which is probably why I'm not very prolific when it comes to novels because yeah, I just have all these kind of like seeds that grow and grow, and I have to wait until they've kind of like really turned into a plant before I can write it.
Wow. And so, because as I was reading it, I'm reading all these little stories and I'm enjoying them. And I'm not really thinking much about how they overlap. I'm just like, and this is a nice story, and this is a nice story. And I am assuming it's going to come together. And it does beautifully. But is that how it's going for you when you're writing? You're like, I've got this little story and this little story, but you don't know how they're going to overlap yet when you write them?
Sometimes, not when I write, by the time I write them, I have it
You
I
have a
have it
plan.
mapped out.
Okay.
So
You have a little
so
outline going. Okay.
yes. Yes, so I'm definitely a plotter. Like I love to, we authors love to talk about plotter versus pantser all the
Yes.
time. Right? And so I'm sure your listeners are familiar with it. So I'm definitely a plotter. So which means I like to plan it all out ahead of time.
Okay.
So yeah, so I have all these little ideas and I think about it and think about it. And that's why it takes me so long to
Yes.
make a book because I have to figure out how they all fit together. And then when I have figured it all out, how it all comes together, then I sit down and write. And
Okay.
so,
So
so
yes, you do get that outline going and everything.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's not, it's by the time I sit down, it's been figured out, usually
Okay.
most.
Nice.
There's always a
Nice.
couple wrong turns here and there, but
Right.
most,
Right. So
yeah.
you have to circle around the importance of editing. For me, that's like the annoyance. I have all these first drafts because I'm like, oh, it's so fun to create the stories, not to fix them. So, all
It's
right.
interesting because for me, I think it's in some ways it's well, it depends on the book, actually. I
Yeah.
take it back, but sometimes I prefer fixing them than doing that first draft. Like creating
Uh-huh.
the story sometimes like, oh, and then
Right?
yeah, because at least you have something you can work with, right? It's kind
Yes.
of like but I have to admit there are other times where even the first draft, like the first, like it's the other way around. Like it's
That
wait, this is so much
excitement.
fun, and
Yay!
then you have to fix
Where
it.
is it
Oh,
going?
I don't wanna. So
Right?
I feel like every book is different.
Yes, yes. And I haven't gotten to the point of being published yet, but whenever I go back and reread, it's the constant, oh my gosh, I'm the worst writer ever. And then like reading something and being like, I'm good. Look at that creativity. So yes, there is that fun aspect of the edit.
It's always
So,
a roller coaster.
right, yes, a definite roller coaster of emotions. What comes first, the illustrations or the story?
Yeah, so I went to art school and studied
Mhm.
illustration. And the way they taught us was always we got the story, we read the story, and then we did the illustration. So for me, the writing always comes first.
Okay.
There's usually one image in my head that one or two images in my head while I'm writing that I'm like thinking about while I'm writing, but I never actually sit down and draw it until all the writing is done.
Nice. All right, so let's talk Lion Cub first. He is so about just, he's joyful, almost like Wilbur, in that he's just out to have fun and experience all the joys and wonders that life brings. It introduces him with playing games, and then his dad is so serious and responsibility. So let's talk independence, but also the importance of being dependable and you know, taking commitments and having follow through because this is so big for this lion cub to really think about and learn throughout the book. So why is it important to have balance between independence and dependability?
Well, the character of Jin is is that way because, like I said, he is one of the stone lions that guard the gate. His father is the stone lion that holds the ball, and his mother is the other stone lion that holds him. But both his parents are staring outward and as statues, and they are watching people. That's their job, to
Yeah.
watch the gate, to watch people, make sure they're
Brutal.
okay. But Jin is carved, and if you ever go to a Chinatown and you see the lions, you will notice the lion cub is usually carved with his head looking up into the sky. The mother is always holding him on his belly. So to me, I was like, oh, Jin is a dreamer. Like the
Yes.
lion cub he was not carved to watch people, even though but he is carved as a protector, right? So
Right.
his job wasn't to watch people. So that's why he's just like, he's up looking at the sky all the time, dreaming and thinking about like lovely, lovely things. And so that's why I felt like his character made sense of somebody who just wants to kind of like have fun and like dream and be a champion, all these things, be a champion Zuchi player, like all these things. But he is a stone lion, and the lion's job and responsibility is to protect people, to protect this gate. And it's basically it's basically a coming of age for all of us, right? We all have to go through that. We're all kids, and your parents take care of most stuff, and then all of a sudden you realize like, oh. I have to take care of things too, and so it's kind of one of those parables. I don't know if parable is the right word, but
Yes.
like it's a parable like that, saying like uh that and I do want to point out that at the very end, Jin's father, who's very, very serious,
Yes.
finds the joy in play. Like the idea that, like, oh, life is not supposed to all be all serious and duty either. Like, you have to have the balance of both, because otherwise, like, what are we protecting if we're not having joy in our life? Like, but we also have to be responsible so that we have a a fulfilling, fruitful, meaningful life too. So,
Yes.
yeah, so it's all those things. I guess the story that I often tell about this book is how the theme of the book really came together during the pandemic.
Okay.
Um, so during the pandemic, we couldn't go to school. So for my daughter, what we did was we set up this pod with like three other families, like three other girls. Um, and they would come over in our backyard and they would do online schooling. They all brought their little laptops and then we'd
Nice.
sit in the backyard and they'd all do online schooling together. But it was still a rough time. So I remember one day we were all setting up in the backyard, and of course, we're just using these rickety folding tables, like we're not like this is all ad hoc. One morning after kind of setting up, the table fell over and everything went over, like everything fell. It was like a big disaster.
Because that was the theme of 2020.
No, it was the theme. But as that happened, all the girls were like screaming and yelling, and they're like, "It's your fault! It's your fault! You did it! Oh, why did you do that? Why did you do that?" And I remember I came in and I yelled, and I was like, "It doesn't matter whose fault it is. We just need to fix the problem."
Right.
Like, and it was such a moment of like, oh, I'm not just yelling about this table. I'm yelling about something else here. And I realized like, oh, I'm yelling at something else, and that is the something else is what I tried to put in this book.
Oh, I love it. That's something else. And think about independence. He's so, like you said, the coming of age, that we're coming into this time that we want to be, of ourselves and strong and self-sufficient, but independence still has depend in it. And there are still so many other people. And I love that Jin just comes at an awareness of everybody else on both sides of the gate, right? That how important everybody is on both sides of the gate and how much the people on the one side of the gate rely on those on the other. Is this, because I don't know a lot about the culture on is this still something that's very important to Chinese culture, of these spirits, like sustaining them, like the pregnant lady, needs that support that she has in this spirit that she's hoping for, supporting her through her health.
If you go to any Chinatown, or if you even go to China or Taiwan or Hong Kong, and you just go into a shop, you'll see most, like a lot of places will have like a little shrine. If you go to a
Yes.
Chinese restaurant, sometimes they'll have a little shrine, and they'll have like little things in it, and it's like, and it actually is very interesting because it's not one religion. It's like it's just a cultural thing. Like
Okay.
it's not exactly Buddhist. It's not exactly Taoist. It's not exactly, like they just kind of mix it all together
Yes.
sometimes, because it's mainly this idea of ancestors. And I mean, you can even see it in that in Mulan, the
Yes.
Disney movie. It's this idea of the ancestors watching over us, and it's us not just honoring them. Like we feed them all the things that we give them things so that they can
Okay.
uh, survive in the spirit world too. So like
Yes. The need on both sides.
yeah, so there's a
Okay.
need on both sides. So we're still connected. So that's the idea behind that kind of,
Okay.
I don't know if it's like, it's not, I guess it's spirituality, right? It's not, but it's not a
Yes.
religion. That's what's so
Okay.
interesting.
Yeah, there can be yeah, I get what you're saying, but spirituality, yes,
Yeah.
yes, I think we all have a need to be spiritual, even if we're not religious, going to houses of worship on a regular
Yeah.
basis. We
Hmm.
have a need for this spiritual connection of something out there,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can definitely feel that. Okay. And I think it definitely has that in community, right? That there's this need for dependability of seeing other people and the importance of other people. And that yes, we want to be strong and be our own selves, but there are others that rely on us and that we rely on them. And not only is it important to be dependable, but it's important to let somebody else help us. And I love that throughout the book that multiple characters are seeing that. And we see somebody coming new into the other side of the gate, that spiritual side, and learning how to, I'm trying to say this without giving spoilers, but right, that they're each learning their roles and how important it is to be needed and to feel valued.
Yeah, well, and I think what you said that was really, which I'm so glad that you picked up on, is the idea of accepting help as well as like, there's a big thing in Buddhism where they talk about how, Buddhist monks, they always go out and they ask for alms, right? They see that as an act of kindness because them asking for something gives you an opportunity to do good. And
Nice.
so in a way, their gift to you is accepting your help because,
Oh, I
like
like
so
that. That makes me
yeah,
feel
and
good.
yeah, and so like so the idea being like it's a cycle of goodness, like it is good to give and it's very important to give help. It's very important to give, but it's also important to receive because you
Yes.
allow that person to give, and so that's something that I really wanted to show like this book is all about like that kind of like it's important to give, it's important to receive, it's important
Yes.
to like be responsible, it's important to have fun, it's like it's how
Yes.
it's
Balance,
everything
that
is connected
whole, both
balance,
sides.
yeah. Like
Yes, I
sometimes we get
definitely felt that in multiple ways. Yeah.
yeah, like sometimes we get so much, I mean sometimes we get too much into like not so much into but like we don't want to receive, and like and
Yes.
I understand that, but sometimes it's important to receive, it's also important to give, all those kind of things,
Yes.
so
Yeah,
um
and so much can be interpreted differently that in our independence and in our efforts, like the two dragons, you know what I mean? There's two very different viewpoints that we can take in life. And I loved the two dragons so much in the book that it's like you can follow two different courses here, and the choice is yours
mhm,
every single day. The
yeah,
choice is yours. And there are others, that come along on the journey and they have opportunities to partake and be a part and follow through. And every day we're making choices to follow through or not, and
mhm,
to see the good or not, and to
mhm,
work hard or not. And so I loved seeing the other side of another character who chose repeatedly to not see that good, to not do the work. Because Jin at least once chooses to not,
mhm,
to go and do something other than what he should do. And
mhm,
he's a youth, he should have fun, but at times he needs to be responsible. And so I like that we see multiple characters choosing to not and then what next.
mhm. Yeah, that's great. And I think what's really important for Jin in the book is that he slowly realizes how everybody affects like everything you do affects
Yeah.
other people and what other people do affects you, like
Yes.
and in big and small ways, teeny tiny ways, and that gives him more of a sense of responsibility and as rightly so, and I hope that's what gives kids who read it a sense too, like, oh, I say something to someone, like you're stupid, and I just say it just because I
Yeah.
think it's funny at the moment, but
And
that
it's
could
not a
be
big deal. They didn't really care because sometimes my son will say that to me. They didn't
yeah.
mind. And I'm like, did they though?
Yeah, and so like these things they affect things, and maybe it didn't really affect them that much, but it's enough to think about, like I affect the world and the world affects me, like
Every day. The little is almost more important than the big. The little
yeah,
decisions, the
yeah.
little impacts we have are even more important than the big, grand things that happen in our lives.
Yeah. So, yeah, so I that's what I hope kids get from this is how we're all connected, how we need the balance, how we can choose to affect the world the way, and the big thing I really want kids to take away from all of my original novels, like Where the Mountain Meets the Moon and Star of the Sky, When the Sea Turns Silver, and this one, is that I feel like we're in a world right now where there's like a lot of superhero movies, which I enjoy. They're really fun. Don't get me wrong. Like, and I know kids love them, but I also want them to know that a hero can be somebody who is not super special. A
Right.
hero can just be somebody who's just trying their best, who's earnestly just making mistakes, fixing it, trying harder, and keeping going. Like, and that can be a hero too. And I think that's and it's not somebody with the biggest muscles. It's not somebody with the best weapon. It's just somebody who's just using their brain, using their heart to try to do something good, and that's
Yes.
really what I want to show in my books.
Because everybody has a heart, everybody has a brain, and you can make those choices for good, and you can have an impact. That the girl, she's so, I hope it doesn't sound like an insult, but simple. You know what I mean? She is just, and I think it's good to be simple. She is just a simple, very overlooked individual, but she's important to somebody, and she can be important to more by making those choices.
Yeah, those are words like simple and earnest, right? Those are
Yeah.
words that we have kind of made like derogatory in a
Yes.
weird way.
But they
And
don't need to be.
yeah, but I feel like we should elevate them
Yes, yes,
and we should appreciate them, like earnestness, simplicity. I think
yes,
those are actually beautiful things. So, um,
yes. Yeah, and sometimes or the dad. Sometimes it's a bad thing to be too stoic. You know what
yeah,
I mean? And that it's like, oh my gosh, it's intimidating to be stoic, and you're just overdoing it. But it's important, these qualities, and then to see both sides, that we see both sides of more than one character. And it's like, yeah, there's good in both sides of this, and finding the strength, and then seeing where, okay, I have a weakness in that I'm not very responsible right now, and I'm not very into all this, but I could be, and I could do something small for good.
yeah.
So that's so fun. All right, let's talk family, because there are a couple different families that feature prominently in the book, and family is sometimes annoying, and family is sometimes so good, and family is sometimes found family. So when you were creating families, what were your goals with the different families there?
Gosh, I guess for me, in terms of Jin, there's a thing about family is like they know you so well that they don't know you at all, kind of thing. And sometimes you have to, I think in some ways, well, I don't know if I really thought about this uh like specifically, but just because you're bringing it up.
Yes, yeah. No, that's great. Sorry.
And I think this is very common in a lot of children's books.
Right.
It's like the child almost has to get away from the family in order to become their whole person.
Yes.
Because like, when he does return home, they're like, oh, you like they like look at him with it, like his father kind of looks at him with a new
New
surprise, like what?
eyes.
Like so that people that they both change while they're away. Though I think what I wanted to show, which maybe not on purpose, but
Right.
is that
Realizing it as you think.
in both the Gate, the Girl and the Dragon and Where the Mountain Meets the Moon, I showed the parents' journey as well as the
Yes.
child's journey. So, like when the child comes back, it's not just the child who's changed, it's the parents who have changed too. And they're
Yes.
both kind of surprised at each other. Like they're both kind of like, wait, I thought you were like this, and I thought you were like this, and now you're not anymore. Like, and the idea that nobody is static, but
Right.
uh so maybe that's what it is. It's like, but as much as they change, they still really love and care for each other. So maybe that's what I'm thinking about when it comes to family,
Oh,
that everyone changes, but there's still the love there,
yes.
regardless. So I think that's probably like
Yeah.
what I
I
was
love
going
it. I
for.
love it. And
Like I
there's so
said,
many
I
themes to be
didn't really
seen.
think about it particularly before I read it.
Well, of course, yeah. But I think a lot of times the themes come out as they're in. You're making a story. It's just a story. That's what I was talking to Danielle Clayton about, that it's like it's just a story. But guess what's in this story? You know, there's so much, and it's just our lives. I remember as a teenager thinking a very certain way about my parents. And that's changed very much now as a parent. And so it's interesting to have me think. And I remember my mom actually saying to me once when we were in a store and I was just browsing, and she was like, "Well, I know it's embarrassing to be around me, but can't you come over?" And I was like, I wasn't even thinking that at all. But as parents, and to me, when my child just will not listen to me, I'm like, oh my gosh, he just thinks I'm so dumb. Parents are dumb. But then thinking back to that moment that I was like, that wasn't it, Mom. That wasn't it. And so we each have our different reasons and our different views, and it's important for us to think there's something else fueling that person. That person does love me. And I can try to remember that.
Yeah.
I think that's good for the kids to see the parents' view in the story because the kids don't get to be I get to remember what it was like to be as a child, but my kid can't say, "What's it like to be a parent?" except for reading just a story. And
Mhm.
so then they can be like, "Oh yeah, that dad that seems so stoic and firm and stern, he still got fun in him and has these different views." And at the end of the day, it is all about love and connection. And
Yeah.
so I think that is so fun. So can you tell us, do you have any little stories that are next? Do you have anything coming? Will we
Yeah.
wait another 9 years?
It might be a while, but in terms of books coming out, I mean, as I said earlier, like I do work on picture books and early readers and things in between novels. So I have a new Ling and Ting book that should come out during Lunar New Year. So
Right?
for any Ling and Ting fans, that's my early reader kind of series. We took a big break from them for years and years, and they're coming back. So that's Ling
That'll
and
be
Ting
fun.
Lunar New Year, and then I have a picture book that I'm working on now, which is called the Little Stone Buddha. I think that's what it's called right now. That might change.
That's fun. That's fun to see these always evolving.
Yes, but that is a book that is inspired by the Buddha of Oakland, a real occurrence called so I suggest all listeners look up the Buddha of Oakland, California, and it's a really great story. My book is not that story, but it's inspired by that. And then hopefully I'm working on something that should be kind of a companion to Where the Mountain Meets the Moon. So
Oh, that one
so
was such a joy for me. It's been,
oh,
gosh,
thanks.
years since I read it. When did it come out?
That came out in it's 2009, I think.
Okay. So yeah, I read it probably 2012, 13. So
Yeah.
it was still fairly new, but
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. So it's gonna hit its I can't remember like 20, I no, I can't remember 20th anniversary soon. So I think we're gonna try to do something with that. But
that'll be
yes.
fun.
So right now it's the title might be, but it's probably not going to be. But it's going to Tales of the Goldfish Man. So
Cool. Cool. Love it. Can you recommend for us a favorite children's book besides your own brilliant work?
sure. So I was going to recommend a book that has not come out yet. Is that okay?
Of course.
Okay. So the book that I was going to recommend is a book that is a graphic novel.
Okay.
It's a middle grade graphic novel. It's called The Many Misfortunes of Eugenia Wang, and it's
Okay.
written and illustrated by Stan Yan.
Okay.
And what's really great about this book, so in Chinese culture, there's some lucky numbers and there's some unlucky numbers.
Okay.
And one unlucky number is the number four, because when you say four in Chinese, it sounds like the word for death. So if you're superstitious, you stay away from the number four. Now, Eugenia Wang was born on April 4th, so she's a double four birthday.
Oh.
Her mother is very, very superstitious, so she never lets Eugenia celebrate her birthday.
Oh.
And so in this book, Eugenia finally decides she's going to defy her mother, celebrate her birthday. But unfortunately, it looks like her mother might be right about celebrating a double four birthday.
And just,
And so
oh.
it's such a fun book, and it's really sweet too. So yes. So that book, I'm not sure when it comes out, but oh, here it is. I'm sorry. September, it comes out in September 2025,
Oh,
September 30th.
perfect. Perfect. Okay, well, we will watch for that. That sounds just heartwarming and beautiful and encouraging too. Like, oh, Love it. Well, thank you so much, Grace, and I appreciate all the time that you put into these. I love I love the folklore and the culture that I get to see that I don't really know about, that I'm not familiar with. So thank you for taking all the time to put
Great,
this into writing.
great, great. Thanks so much.
I hope that you enjoyed hearing about The Gate, the Girl, and the Dragon by Grace Lin. If you enjoy my podcast, Book Cuddle, I'd really appreciate it if you could rate and review it on your podcast platform. That will help more people find Book Cuddle. Now go and have a fantastic week reading some amazing books.